Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to showcase a build that I think going into Edge of Fate should be on your watch list, something to just keep an eye out for, because the stat changes that we're getting are going to be so influential for this build. It's already really good, it does its job so well, which is just being a super printing machine. You can probably already tell by the fact that we're, what, 3/4 of the way there and we're 20 seconds into the GM, but going into Edge of Fate with just investing in the super stats, and this is one build that I'm confident in saying that 200 super stat is going to be what you want to run. You're not only hitting your regen, which is going to go up and affect pretty much every part of this build, but then you're also tacking on a bunch more damage onto those supers, which is great because you can spam them so often. It just makes this thing even more consistent, and it was already pretty consistent in the first place, so yeah. What this is a Spirit of Galanor and then Spirit of Synthos or Spirit of Lies. Lies is what I'm using here. And the whole idea is that we leverage how many melees we can deal with Combination Blow and how many dodges we get from Combination Blow refunding that. Using double Dynamo on the helmet, triple heavy-handed on the arms, and triple distribution on the class item, we're able to get 8% of a super back on dodging, and then we make an absolute load of orbs as well from how many melee kills we get, which we can then pick up for even more super regen. The reason why investing in super stat is going to be so important is that Dynamo gets affected, distribution gets affected, any orbs you pick up are going to get affected by the super stats, and we've also got hands-on on the helmet, which is also going to get affected by the super stat. So all of the things that are giving us super regen in this build are getting affected. The one thing that I don't know about yet is how super regen is going to be affected with Galanor and the super stat. At the minute, the max amount that you can get is 50 or 30 in some cases. 30 is the regen that you get with Silk Strike. You see here that it never goes up to that halfway mark. And I want to say also Golden Gun, I think, is the other super where Galanor will only refund 30%. Those are actually nerfs that the build had. This used to be 50. And if you go back and watch the build video for this build, I'll leave a link down below. But you tell from that video that it was originally 50. So it made supers faster than it does now back then, but I think with the super changes, or at least the super stat changes, going into Edge of Fate, we're going to be making supers so much faster. But again, the thing that I don't know is how Galanor is going to affect regen if we have 100 in the super stat. As in, are we going to be able to go past 50, or is it that we reach 50 faster, or is it just completely not even going to be changed? It's one of the things that I'm going to be testing. It might get its own dedicated video, but I think one thing that I will do is maybe just go back over all of the builds that I've made and just do a complete kind of showcase, I guess, and just say, listen, these are the changes that I think you should be making to the builds that I've put out. I think you should put X amount in this stat, and these are the relevant changes that we've seen. A lot of the builds that I work with are melee builds, just because I really enjoy melee builds, the kind of aggressive playstyle of them. But yeah, there's just been so many changes that it kind of warrants a video like that, but it's something where I really am wanting to just test. And also why I've been kind of skeptical about making Theorycraft builds, because I'm really not an advocate for kind of like on paper this sounds good. I'm much more I want to test stuff and see how it feels, and off of the feeling of a build, I'll then make recommendations. That to me is probably the most important thing about a build, is that it feels fun and feels good to play. That's why I'm an absolute master for what you're watching right now, because this is so much fun to play, because you print supers, and your teammates also really enjoy you playing this build because you make so many orbs for them as well. That's also one thing that I don't know is going to be affected if you are invested in the super stat, whether you make more powerful orbs for your teammates, or whether their super stat dictates the orbs that they pick up are then larger by their investment in super stat. That's one thing I don't know, and I also don't know if that's been brought up yet in a Twitter something. Again, it's stuff like this where I just have to test with the build and confirm it, and it's something that we just don't know. There's a lot of kind of ifs and buts right now that just kind of unaware of with stuff. But yeah, going into Edge of Fate, the stat that I can say pretty confidently that you will want to have max with this build is going to be the super stat. The only other one where I would very confidently say it needs to be at X amount is going to be the melee stats at 70, as 70 is the threshold for Gambler's Dodge to get a full melee refund. And that's really important in this build because you're dodging and then you're almost immediately using a melee. I think there could potentially be some class item roles like Inmost Light, for example, where you could maybe get away with not actually running a full melee just because with the amount of abilities you can use on Inmost Light class items, maybe not getting that full melee refund doesn't matter because you'll just get the passive regen that you'll get from Inmost Lights to the melee. But yeah, in this build it's kind of like you dodge and then you immediately punch. There's never going to be a point at which you don't want to have full melee here, and it's also important for kind of cycling your abilities and stuff like that. Apart from that, it's then going to be really hard to say what stats I think are going to be good in this build. 70 melee, 200 super, but from there, whether you want to invest in weapons, grenade, it's just, yeah, it's going to be difficult. Maybe you want to go for class, but then it would just be for the overshield really, because Gamblers, I think, is... Oh, actually, that's a good question. Now I don't know what amount we have to have on class. Okay, maybe in this build you need to have 70 class as well. I'm not actually 100% on whether it is fixed ability energy on Gamblers or whether it's like this will give you a percentage amount. Okay, if it is percentage amounts and 70 is the threshold for class, then yeah, absolutely you need to go go for 70 here on the class in order to get the refund from Combination Blow. Again, like, this is what I'm saying. This is why I don't want to make these recommendations now. I really want to test this stuff before I say invest in this or use this. What's good, what's not. I just don't know. Yeah, apart from that, maybe weapons, but the thing is, this build is already so efficient in its ad clear with Combination Blow, and that is getting us a lot of kind of like, well, it's what we use for really clearing out ads because they are what give us super energy. So yeah, I don't know. The one thing that could maybe be a little better is investing in the health stats. We've just recently seen a change to recuperation, or I think it's recuperation. The one where you get HP when you pick up an orb of power. It's kind of been a little bit gutted in that it's no longer going to give you 75 HP, it's going to give you 15. And for this build, that's important because we run that as a healing tool in the kit. It's really one of three things. We have Stylish Executioner, we have Facet of Purpose, which depending on your equipped super is going to give you a different buff. Quite often in this build, I'm running much more Silk Strike because it's a really good super. Storm's Edge, they gave it Bolt Charge now when you pick up an orb, so it's not really kind of like a survivability tool, but you do just get amplified in the kit through having an arc ability in Combination Blow, so you do get amplified semi-consistently. It's kind of like only if you're running arc weapons that you can get it outside of a Combination Blow here, or maybe an arc grenade, but Grapple is really nice in that it sets you up with a debuff and you don't need to tack on any extra fragments. It's just kind of like off the rip, you're going to have Unravel, which is really, really nice. But, yeah, it's kind of bulk charge. It's not, like, it's a good effect, but it's not really giving you survivability, whereas Silk Strike is giving you Woven Mail, which is really nice. And again, heavy-handed, we have 3 copies of, so we're making orb on pretty much every single melee kill. And yeah, it's nice. It's part of the reason why this is a super that I recommend in the build, because its synergy with Faster Purpose is so nice. Otherwise, you could go for, to be honest, any of the supers are nicer. You get Void Overshield in Tether, and Tether is a really good super to run here, but it functions weirdly in that it's almost like a one-off super, so you have to shoot it into a big group of ads, and it's one super where, again, I don't know how it's going to really work with the super stamp, because it kind of applies, obviously it's the 30% weaken, but then maybe like the damage it spreads out across the whole tether gets the boosted effect if you're at 200 super. I'm going to sound like a stuck record. Again, it's something that I just have to go and test before I say invest in this stat, because maybe different stats in that case are worth investing in depending on what super you're running. Like, is Tether really worth it for its damage? Not really. So would you go to 200 with that? No. But like, if you were using Storm's Edge or Silk Strike, I imagine those are things that would absolutely be worth investing 200 super stats in. This is stuff we, again, I'm going to sound like a stuck record, I just don't know. But, yeah. Sorry, I've been going on this entire time about Edge of Fate stat changes and not really talked about the build. Hopefully some of it is already obvious. Stylish Executioner is the first aspect, and kill a debuffed enemy, you go invis. It's been a staple of Combination Blow, and so is the other aspect that we're running in Winter Shroud, which is you slow enemies when you dodge near them, and then you also get, I think, 50% damage resist for 3 seconds after dodging. And when you slow enemies as well, you get increased class ability regen, but I don't think that really matters in this build, because Combination Blow is just giving you that full refund on your dodge. And I think even going into Edge of Fate, if you have to invest in the class stats in order to get that refund, you do it. You just make sure that your stats are at enough where you get a refund on class and you get a refund on melee whenever you use each one of melee or dodge. That's, I think, just going to be important to the loop of the build. But yeah, otherwise, Grapple is here. I kind of already touched on it before, but gives a debuff, which you can work off of Stylish Executioner. And also going into Edge of Fate, we're seeing Combination Blow's damage increase now being passed along to Grapple, which I think is going to be really nice. The melee changes that we're getting in Edge of Fate feel... I kind of don't want to call them buffs, because it's more like they're raising the floor but lowering the ceiling, in that if you're just using, say, like one thing, like a Combination Blow Grapple, for example, in that case it's going to get more powerful. But I think, for example, something like a melee hit against a frozen target with 3 times Combination Blow, Liar's Handshake procs, and using a 1-2 punch shotgun, in that case, I think that's when you're going to be seeing lower than here. I'm not kind of 100% on what the numbers are going to look like with all of that stuff. Again, I'm going to sound like a stuck record. You just got to test this stuff, or at least I will be testing this stuff. And when I do that big kind of like, here are all the builds I've made, here are the big systematic changes, and here are the stats that I think are worth investing, I'll mention all of them. But yeah, I kind of don't know. But for things where it's just like, hey, you've got Combination Blow and your Grapple Melee is charged, or Grapple Melee, Grapple Grenade is charged, you know, that I think is just going to be kind of like net positive in being more effective. And yeah, for the fragments, we have got Facet of Dawn. That's a really big one here, in that Radiance is nice for anti-barrier, and that is honestly really the big reason that we're doing it. A lot of the time we're relying on our melees to be taking down these big healthy targets like what you've been seeing, or even just using supers, which obviously you can make an absolute load of. It's really there for anti-barrier, but nice sometimes to just kind of have that 20% weapon damage boost. And yeah, also speaking, hold on, I'll get round to that afterwards. I'll do fragments first. Faceted purpose is picking up an orb, already mentioned that one. Mainly there for your survivability, which is quite important because the recuperation nerf is actually going to hit this build quite hard from 75 to 15. We do rely on those because as you get more stacks of combination blow, the healing of it goes down. So being able to go from, I think it's something like a 100 HP heal to a, I want to say 40, having those orbs to be able to pick up from heavy-handed afterwards is really nice. So I think that's going to be quite impactful. Does it hit the build that much? I don't think it will, but you are just going to have to be a little bit more careful. Not so reckless as what you're seeing right here, but yeah. Again, it's one of those things where Bungie is wanting you to invest in the matching stats in order to get those powerful effects. In this case, it would be health that they would want you to be going towards. And yeah, maybe that is a stat that's worth putting a little bit into, but again, if there are requirements of having 70 in melee and 70 in class, and I feel like 200 in super with this build is just going to be the thing that you should be doing, your stats at that point become a little bit more scarce. So yeah, just have to see about that one. Also, I haven't even talked about sorry, I've been talking about build stuff this entire time. I haven't been talking about the run. I do this boss legitimately, and as you saw before, I did the towers all legit as well. If there is one build that I'm really confident in using, it's this one. I don't know if anyone else has this, but it's just a build where I've got, like, I've used it so much and I've got, like, big time confidence in playing it well that I'm happy to do this boss room normally. If you didn't know, there's a little ledge kind of over in the corner to our right, and you can stand there and just chip away at the boss, but I thought, you know what, I can just pop a super if the boss spawns on top of me. The only problem being is that he goes kind of in his, I guess you call it like invis state, where he just disappears. Whenever you get shatters, he does that so often. Like there, you saw he got shattered and he disappears. For this build with Hellfire Spikes, with Winter Shroud, with Tenacious, you get a lot of shatters. So it was kind of hard to nail this boss down, and that's why the run time of this is a little longer. Could I have stood in the corner and just killed him pretty quickly? Yeah, maybe. But, you know, I didn't feel like doing it. Sorry, I was talking about fragments just before and and didn't get any further. Facets of Courage is one that we do run, where darkness debuffed enemies take more damage from light abilities. That in Edge of Fate is getting a 40% increase. I think going from, or at least 40% increase for melees, which in this build is the thing that you actually care about, going from, I think, 10% bonus to, I want to say 50, if I remember correctly. I think it's a 50. Yeah, from 10 to 50. I'm pretty sure it's from 10 to 50. And then for the rest of them, that was Faceted Dawn, Faceted Purpose, Faceted Courage. I can't remember the rest of them. Oh, hold on, I've just seen one and remembered one. A Facet of Protection is just for a little bit of DR when you're surrounded. You're often in the thick of fights with this build. It's kind of just a really nice pairing to have, and yeah, it a little bit of DR helps your survivability. And then the last one, I can't remember. So, yeah, sorry. Although, one thing is that I believe that we're going to be seeing, I say believe, we are getting a fragment nerf, and that the amount that you're going to be able to run is going to be reduced. So, yeah, I think what you're seeing here, all the important fragments, maybe Dawn can come off, but then you lose Radiant and you lose Anti-Barrier, which I don't like. And for me, I really enjoy being able to play builds where from the subclass I'm able to deal with champs. That's part of the reason why I really enjoy prismatic builds, is that you have Radiant for Anti-Barrier, and then so many effects that can deal with the other two. And you don't get that on many other subclasses, and obviously Stasis is losing that, which is part of kind of, we're relying on Stasis here for our unstop. So yeah, kind of like a, not like a nerf to the damage or anything of this build, but a nerf to its ability to deal with champs for sure. It becomes really good at dealing with two champs, those being Overload from Shatter and Anti-Barrier through Facet of Dawn. And yeah, for the rest of the kits, or I guess rest of the kit weapons are probably the best things to speak on. I'm really enjoying using Anarchy with this build, or at least weapons where you're just able to kind of do a couple shots and then just stow that weapon and forget about it. You're using Tenacious to set up your Winter Shroud. It's really nice to just have a gun where I can shoot once and then dodge once, and then that's a frozen enemy. You deal bonus melee damage to frozen enemies, and being able to set that up with just a gun is really nice. Or at least a gun and a dodge is really nice. And yeah, otherwise I'm using a 1-2 punch shotgun. It's arc in this case because it has synergy with combination blow, being able to set up amplified, which we just get passively through having an arc ability in the kits. But yeah, I don't know what the shotgun is. It's just some random one that I've got. I think it's from Gambit, which is a game mode that I hardly ever play. So how I've got a good roll on this shotgun, I don't know. But it's there. It's literally just there to serve as like a 1-2 punch engine for the build. It doesn't get used for all that much else. And honestly, it's only really in dealing with champs where I actually pull the thing out to get the damage bonus. Yeah, otherwise that's kind of, I'm trying to think about what else I have in the build that's really making a big difference. I think that's pretty much it. Transcendence here, as far as like a gameplay thing, it's not all that useful. It literally serves to just give you a little bit of extra DR and give you a melee reset. So it's nice in that regard, in that you can kind of dodge combination blow, hit Transcendence, and then immediately recombination blow, which is helpful in kind of like getting stacks of combination blow, especially if you haven't got any. It's really nice to not have to dodge and then just immediately be able to build up another combination blow stack without relying on the dodge. But the thing is, dodges are your super energy, and the supers are so impactful in this build that I kind of find myself dodging more often than not. Only other thing would be that Hailfire Spike is quite nice because it applies slow and it also applies Scorch. Both debuffs which set you up for stylish, so yeah, kind of, you know, that's there too. But it's not massively impactful. I don't care all that much about Transcendence. The bonuses that it gives are literally just like a little extra bit of DR and debuffing grenade, which we already kind of have in grapple grenade, so again, not kind of like the world's most impactful thing to have in the kit. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think that's pretty much it, to be honest. Or at least all the stuff that makes up the build. I recommend, if you kind of have liked what you see, go watch the build video, although just know that obviously going into Edge of Fate, a lot of the stuff that I said there, specifically to do with ability regen and super regen, is going to be off. I don't know what exact values are going to be if we are at 100 super, but yeah, it'll look quite different, but look different in the best possible ways, in that we get more super regen, which is going to be really nice. Obviously some stuff like what I've mentioned, the recuperation change will be different. We might see different melee values as well, but again, the thing that we really care about, the fast charging supers, not only charge faster, but hit harder, which is going to be so good. I'm going to work on the Heart of Inmost Light Flechette Storm Titan build. That's one that I cannot wait to work on, and I think it's going to be so good with the stat changes that we get in Edge of Fate. But yeah, I'm working on that, and then yeah, just whatever catches my eye. I think on a Hunter, Temper Strike, now inheriting Combination Blows damage bonus, is going to be really cool, and something that I'm absolutely going to be messing around with. I think especially in Gifted Conviction builds, Assassin's Cowl as well is something that could work really well. Yeah, I have to say, there's a lot of changes that melees are getting, so I really do think that melee builds are going to be probably a bit of focus on the channel. I've always liked them as well. It's much more my playstyle, that kind of like aggressive nature that you can get with melee builds. They just they scratch an itch for me, which an itch that I really like, in that they're so much fun. But yeah, apart from them, I'm then also going to be doing like here are the builds I've made, these are the things I recommend, and the changes that you've seen. That will be of a decent length, but I'm not going to go crazy with the editing on that one, just because there's going to be a lot of builds. In fact, I was putting a bunch of builds into my my Discord, just because I was like, hold on, if people come here and they're like looking for my builds, I should probably actually have them all in one place. And I was looking, I was like, god damn, I've actually made like quite a few builds. So yeah, that's going to be a bit of a mammoth project, so I think the editing will be a little bit lesser. I also want to work on the custom exotics one. I've got an idea for the custom exotics, as in, like, literally I have a custom exotic that I want to talk about. That is going to be like a big community thing. I think that's the way it should be. But I'm literally just going to like implode if I don't get this idea off my chest. It's so cool. In my mind, it would be so cool. And yeah, if I don't if I don't talk about it, I'm just gonna be there being like, man, this sucks. I've got an idea that I want to talk about, but obviously I can't like work my ideas in with other people's, because yeah, that would just be a bit biased, kind of like pretty rigged, to be honest. So yeah, anyway, I think we're coming to the end here. I'm pretty sure this super finishes him off. Okay, no, I ran away. Oh well, Transcend Nade, and Anarchy does the job. And there we go, solo gen, with no skips or no cheeses, nothing like that. And you'll see the stats in a second. You'll see kills to orbs, they're pretty substantial. And you also see the drip check. I absolutely love the look of this build. Hold on, here it comes. Sheesh. I think it's so cool looking. There you go. Like 500 kills, 350 orbs made, and then subclass. Silk Strike is the super, but there's so many that can work with there, just not Silence and School. And then Gamblers, Combination Blow, Grapple, Stylish, Winters, Sacrifice, Protection, Dawn, Courage, and Purpose. And then Tenacious, Dead Weight, I wouldn't have even known the name, Anarchy, and yeah, there you go. Double Dynamo, Hands-On, Triple Heavy-Handed, and you can see Triple Distribution. Again, all of those are getting massively buffed by the super changes coming in Edge of Fate, so that's really nice. I don't actually know why I've got a armor charge mod on my legs. That shouldn't be there. No, I've got no way to spend it. And then those are the artifact perks. Anyway, that's about it from me. See you.